Welcome back to the Beyond the Wire podcast. I am your host, Tim Keller. Along with me is my amazing co-host, Mr. Matt Disher. And we have a guest with us this week. We welcome in Misty Fox. How are you, Misty?
I'm doing pretty well, things considered. How about you all?
We are doing good. Before we went live, we were talking. Misty, you have a run of luck. I don't want to call it good or bad, but it's a run of some sort of luck. You are now COVID positive for the second time. Is that right?
I'm COVID. Yes, I'm COVID positive. Continue to get tested, I guess, because I decided to go on a business trip, and here we are in quarantine. So there's great things, though. I've been able to devour like 4 different books. My Kindle's getting well used, and it's kind of like a staycation. So I can't complain too much at this point.
I think the good side of this is we can use the word positive. That's the positive side of this, is that for once this is a bad thing, we can just say it's positive and then it sounds better.
Right. I am COVID positive.
Yep. It is it's making that lemonade from the lemons, you know?
Correct.
And
which I can't taste.
Yeah. Which you can't taste.
That's a great point.
It could either be really sour or really sweet, or it could be the perfect lemonade. Misty can't tell.
Somebody
could give you the worst lemonade in the world, and you'd be like, this
ever.
is so good.
And I would make them feel really good about themselves.
Right.
This is
This is a liquid.
It's cold and wet.
Yeah.
It's cold and wet. Yeah. And we're happy about it. So yeah, it's unfortunate. My fridge is stocked with all sorts of healthy goodies right now, but I do have bacon. Can't taste bacon, but I keep it in there just in case, because it's always that go-to comfort food.
Yep. That'd be rough to not taste bacon. And just for everybody out there, Misty is vaccinated. So even if you're vaccinated, still might want to check up. If you start feeling things, or if you travel like Misty did, she thought it was just a good precaution to get tested. Came back positive. Still protect the people around you.
Sharing is caring, just not with COVID. Don't share COVID.
Right.
Keep that to yourself.
Yeah, keep your COVID over there.
Yourself.
Keep it on the other side of the plastic screen.
Exactly.
By the way, I have the hardest time with all that because I can't hear anybody anyway. And then when people wearing masks and behind a plastic screen, I'm like, I can't. My ears are ringing so loud all the time anyway. Thanks a lot.
Right.
Thanks a lot, Marine Corps. But, it just made it so much harder. And some places still have the plastic thing up. And thankfully, I can read lips if they have a mask off. Mm-hmm. But I had the hardest time over the course of the last year. And I know that's probably minuscule compared to probably what other people with certain disabilities probably had throughout the last year. Was probably very difficult. But
it makes you more conscious of it. I will also say huge missed opportunity if the next Olympics doesn't have some sort of like charades built into it, because I also feel like after this year of having to kind of act out what you're saying because no one can hear you, even if you do have great hearing, that there are some master level charade artists that I think are kind of undiscovered. So that's my take on it. But I totally agree. It is wildly frustrating trying to communicate with anyone. And then if you like with your mask and all the other things like that. But here we are again, though.
Yeah.
Probably not COVID if they had all that. So it's okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I know there's fantastic apps out there, like Google Translate, for instance. You find yourself in a place dealing with an individual that speaks a different language. It helps that translation barrier a little bit. Google Translate needs to come out with like a mask. You hold it up to them, they mumble something into it, and then Google spits it back.
Well, you remember the Peanuts teacher? Wah, 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 wah. You know what I mean? It's the same. That's what it sounds like to me too. And I'm like, oh, this is the Peanuts. I get it.
Yeah, we are all Charlie Brown.
We've unexpectedly prepared our whole lives for this with Charlie Brown and smizing, all that. We're really ready.
Exactly. Yes.
Yep.
Misty's 100% right. So. Yep. Well, let's get in some news like we always like to try to do. We go to military.com. We check out some fun articles. We pull them up. Actually, Misty put us on to one that's fantastic. We're going to save that one for the end because that is a fantastic article. The first one I wanted to start with is China and Taliban ties are warming ahead of the U.S. withdrawal. So the China's foreign prime minister met Wednesday with delegation of high-level Taliban officials. There's actually a photo of the Chinese minister and some of these Taliban officials. China states they respect Afghans' foreign sovereign independence and territorial integrity. and always adhere to non-interference in Afghans' internal affairs. China trying to build, I guess, some friends in the neighboring countries to them. At this point, I would not say I'm too concerned about China's involvement in Afghanistan as long as they're going to keep themselves out of it. My overall concern is with the U.S. withdrawal and the Taliban and the ceasefires and all of those good things. But I thought this was an interesting article, just something to keep an eye on. We all know China's, position in the world political power game. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So don't want to see Afghanistan topple backwards into, what they were before. Hate to see the guys go back.
It's a hard, I had this conversation with somebody else the other day, and it was that we tend to think about governments and political power and things like that in terms of how the United States operates. But when you go to other countries, you're talking about tribal sectors and people who are like, I don't care what big government and what incentives big government can offer me. So anybody with influence, money, and anything else, power, control, whatever, they can come in there and basically do whatever they want to do.
Mm-hmm. The Olympics are going on. That's always a good time. It got pushed back by a year. It was supposed to be last summer, but we all know what happened last summer, so they had to put the Olympics on hold. So in 2021, they are playing out the Tokyo Olympics. And for two golfers, this is the biggest golf tournament of their entire lives. So Korean golfers Soon Jae Im and Si-woo Kim, if they can win a gold medal in the Olympics, they will be exempt from the mandatory 18-month military service that North Korea has. So I just thought this was interesting. The Olympics are a big deal right now. I don't think golf. I'm a golf fan, mildly, but I don't think golf is one of the biggest Olympic sports. But I think that this is an interesting story because if either one of these two young men find themselves in the running to medal come Sunday afternoon, that there's going to be another level of pressure upon these individuals that they've probably never had.
Never.
So this article talks about how these two men keep telling themselves it's just like any other golf tournament. We've done this our entire lives. Just go out there and swing the club, hit the ball clean. But the one young man through an interpreter says, I know that it's true that if we medal, the Korean government will exempt us from military service, but I don't really focus or think about the service in the military. My only goal is to win a championship and get a medal to be honored. I think that's a good mindset. I don't believe it one bit. I think that in the back of your mind, you're like, I really have to do good.
I have
right.
to. There's no other option. I have
No.
to. But I will say that this year, just overall, it's bizarre to me how much inside look we've gotten at for like the Olympians and their lives. Like to your point about golf, like you're never like, what, I can't wait to wake up at 4 a.m. and watch Olympic golf. That doesn't enter a lot of people's minds, but like there's the woman that everyone's hyped up over that's like the TikTok star of the USA rugby team and everything like that. But I agree with you. I think that this is a whole different set of pressure. You're in an Olympics during a pandemic, and then you have this put on your plate. There's no way he's just like, oh, it's another day of golf.
Yeah.
Congratulations if he is.
You work your entire life to get to this point, especially the past, I'd say 3 to 4 years, these individuals that have made these Olympics have done nothing but train their butts off to get to this point. You find yourself in here without anything outside of here. The pressure to try to do your best in this short block of time and hopefully medal is, momentous. But then you add, not only if I can do what I've always wanted to do and win an Olympic medal, I also will not then have to go potentially risk my life serving in the military. Can't imagine the amount of pressure on them. So
right.
The quote from the young man there, I think, is a great mindset. I personally don't believe it.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that was his quote?
It came out of his mouth to an interpreter.
Right.
Was it written down and this is your response to this question given to him? I also could say I would, without a doubt, believe that as well.
Right.
That there is air quotes here, handler from the government for these athletes to say, here's your script.
You'll say this.
You go off this script. Your trip home won't be delightful, but best of luck to both of them. You know, obviously, I would love to see American athletes do fantastic and medal and, USA. But I'd say that I'm mildly pulling for two Korean golfers here.
Yeah, no kidding.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just like we were all pulling for the woman who was from the Philippines, right? That just won the first gold medal.
Yeah.
Team USA all the way, except for her. Like she gets the gold. Like we can set one out, guys.
Yep.
So.
Well, I mean, I can, I think I've said that about Olympians all along. Of course, Team USA. But when you encounter those ones who are just so good at what they do, and you can tell that they've worked so hard, I don't care where you're from. That's the whole purpose of this. Like, I don't root for the Angels, but Mike Trout is an amazing baseball player. You know what I mean? Like, I like watching Mike Trout play baseball. And even if he's, if they were to play against the Reds, that's my team. I'm still like, Mike Trout. I want to see Mike Trout do something amazing. So
the reality of watching any sport is to see top level athletes do amazing things, and they all make it look so easy. So this is literally the pinnacle of athletic performance is the Olympics. So it's kind of like this podcast. I mean, there's Joe Rogan and then Beyond the Wire. Yeah, and right below us. I mean, we're just right there.
Neck and neck.
Neck and neck. But people like to tune in because I think our guests are also like similar to Olympians, Misty. Like you're among the best at what you do. And so people tune in to watch the best of the best. Yeah. That's why we're here today.
Yeah. Gold medal winner, Misty Fox.
Gold
medal.
Yep.
Absolutely. And speaking of gold medals, Misty presented us with what is the equivalent of a gold medal in an article here. And it is the 7 things veteran business owners can learn from Tiger King. I almost couldn't read the title of the article just now. I almost started laughing.
You were just in awe?
Yeah, yes. If we remember about 18 months ago when this whole pandemic really kicked off and lockdown became a big thing across almost all the states, Netflix themselves landed some gold when they
delivered.
When they pulled out the Tiger King and put it out there on their streaming service, and it got absolutely eaten up by the American public. If you remember, the Tiger King series was essentially if they could boil it down and inject you with the whatever it is that going to Walmart at 3 a.m. is and just people watching. That is what the Tiger King series was.
I mean, let's be frank. It's like the comfort that we feel with Mr. Rogers and his sweater, we now also get a generation later with the Tiger King and then just their garish just existence. And so absolutely, I think that there's a lot of comfort that came from this just piece of art that was put together for us by Netflix.
If Mr. Rogers was addicted to meth and enjoyed murderous cats, that's exactly it.
I couldn't. My wife watched this like twice. I didn't even know about it until we were several episodes in.
Okay.
And listen, guys. I'm gonna be a blasphemer here. Couldn't. I watched some of it just to. It's like watching like a 20 car pileup happen in front of your eyes. You're like, I have to watch this. But that's what it was. And
no, it's lively.
After a couple of episodes, it became like the Real Housewives or any of those other types of shows where I'm just like, I don't understand how the Kardashians or Jersey Shore. Those are shows like I could watch it for.
Put it on the continuum. You have, I agree. Like you have Kardashians and Real Housewives, and then you have like there is something about this. Like maybe it's your grocery store culture at 3 a.m. Like this is pure, like unadulterated, like backwoods America. And as someone who is proudly from Oklahoma and just really embraces the roots that are the Tiger King, like I'm sure, he's somewhere in my family tree, and I'm honored in all honesty.
Yeah. Well, let's go over some of these, the 7 things we can all learn. Number 1 is anyone can do it. So Mr. Exotic, as we'll call him, he and his brother owned a pet store. His brother was tragically killed. So Joe, he gets a settlement payment and he decides, you know what? I'm going to buy a ranch and I'm going to buy tigers. I'm going to start breeding them. And that's exactly what he did. So he bought a ranch, started breeding tigers. I don't know what I would do with a large settlement sum of money. I don't think buying tigers would probably be the top of my list, but that's why I can never be Tiger King.
I would get some tigers. I'd definitely get some tigers.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like tigers would be high on my list as well.
There's a long running history of anybody that comes into just crazy amounts of money for some reason. We've seen it with narcos, drug kingpins. After you make a couple $100 million, you're like, I want a tiger. I don't know what it is, but they do it. Number 2 on this list is do what you love. Obviously, if anybody watched this show, there was something about these tigers that Joe just absolutely loved. He really did seem to love the animals, love the business. He went about it all the wrong ways. As Matt said, it was like watching a car crash.
Right.
And it started off as presenting this like, hey, look at this like oddball kind of guy. Seems, relatively normal, but you could definitely tell there's something slightly off about him. But like, look at all the success he's having. And then just episode after episode, it just now watch it all unravel. So yeah, at the beginning of it, they really highlight that Joe got into it for what seemed like all the right reasons, and he loved these animals. Down the line, they show that maybe there was some a darker side to this.
That's why training is important. Mm-hmm. Leverage your network, get the proper training, and then you yourself can be Tiger King, but just better at it.
But like logistics king or office operations king or sales king. See,
engineer king.
Right. Let's watch them make a Netflix series on Misty Fox going to work every day and interacting with people in the office. Do you think that would be? I mean, I don't know, Misty. I don't know about your day to day. Would that be like as interesting as Tiger King or no?
I mean, I'd like to think it would be, just considering some days are pretty cool. But if you think about it, if I compared my highlight reel to his highlight reel, I feel like we could have some similarities. Like I've had some cool things, met some cool people. Now, if we're talking like day to day, as much fun as the life of Misty Fox sounds, like it's not. I'm sitting in a hotel with a broken cabinet. Like it's not as much fun as, maybe the highlight reel that's Joe Exotic. I'd like to think it is.
And you're probably not carrying a revolver on your hip, which is,
I'm not, and I don't have a mullet. Thought about it.
You could do that though. You have
I have
the
enough
basic structure.
That I
you
really could just embrace it at this point. And I think that's the other thing is, Joe Exotic's unapologetically Joe Exotic. And for that, like I commend him.
Well, that leads us right into number 3, and self-promotion is essential. Joe Exotic was always Joe Exotic. There was no doubt about who this individual was. He was known not only in the local neighborhood, statewide, countrywide. The guy ran for president at one point. Joe Exotic didn't become Joe Exotic overnight, and he didn't change his name without reason. He realized his repeat business was coming from customers who wanted to see the GW Zoo's wild owner. So he realized that, yes, the tigers are a nice attraction, but just as the tigers pull people in, people are coming to see me. I'm going to self-promote this character, Joe Exotic. So, the article's not saying go out there and create an alter ego. Matt Disher doesn't have to become like, Matt Laser and start his, I don't know, Play-Doh business or whatever Matt is really into. But he could.
Hold on a second. What was that again?
Matt Laser. There you go. Write that down. Nice. Yeah.
And it was Play-Doh, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the self-promotion. You need to get out there. You need to try to find ways to get in front of people, get your name out there, hopefully for the right reasons. And just keep on promoting yourself. Number 4 is invest in yourself. Success breeds success. So as you bring money in, especially for small businesses, as money comes in, you need to put the money back into the business in order to take the next step and scale up to larger. If you're still small and, that first time you get a little bit of money that gets you out of the red, you go and blow it. Next month, you're not guaranteed to be right back out of the red. Yeah. You need to keep putting it back in.
Yep.
And speaking of money, number 5 is manage your finances. We all saw that towards the end of this series of Tiger King, Joe was looking for investors to come in and try to help bail him out. He was looking for money. There is the now extremely famous quote that anytime anything bad happens to anybody, this GIF seems to make its way into, whatever the conversation is, but is the, I will never financially recover from this. I think that's when a tiger attacked one of his employees. And
the tiger attacked one of his employees, ripped her arm off. He was never going to financially recover from it. It's the same exact attitude my husband has anytime he finds a light on in the house. So, we identify strongly with
yes, I was gonna. You know what, Misty? Last summer, as the heat started to pick up, you have all the dad jokes of, hey, somebody left a window open, the air's on, or the door's open, or the lights on, or who touched the thermostat. And it's a picture of somebody going, I'll never financially recover from this. Somebody knock the thermostat down by 2 degrees.
It's how you've crossed over into dadhood when you're like, wait, why is that light switch on ever? Including when you're in the room. We don't need lights. Let's go back to candles.
Right.
Yeah. Matt walks around his house with a little nightcap on and a lantern.
Mm-hmm. Candles and such, and a headlamp on. Well, I mean, so we got our basement finished a few years back, and I have a 10-year-old, and he'll go down there and play video games. He'll have all of his friends down there, and they run around, and for whatever reason, they play hide and seek, and they have to turn on every single light in the house. The one thing that we didn't do, and this was silly on my part, it was my first time finishing a basement. I didn't put all the light switches at the top of the stairs.
Genius.
So there are light switches scattered.
Lights on down there. You got to go down and
I got to. What a drag! I got to walk down like 15 steps. Walk down there. I know. After the Marine Corps, after humping hills for 10 miles at a time with 80 pounds of gear.
Steps.
15
terrible.
steps. I'm so tired. My legs hurt. But yeah. So I go down there and I'm like, how did? But the thing is, like, I'll find a light that's on that I didn't even know had a light switch. I'm like, how did this light turn on?
Right.
And we can talk about this all day. Yeah.
How did we get it here? Like, do kids install lights? Like, is this one of the, how they always say that kids have like gifts or whatever that, they lose over time as they grow up, and then you have to relearn it as adults. Like, I think one of them is an electrician. I think kids are born with an innate sense of how to wire houses because I agree with you. Lights and switches I didn't know exist have appeared in our house.
Yeah. We didn't have a light switch back here in this storage space. And yeah. And somehow there were children back there, and they found this room and went in there and left the lights on. And then they leave the lights on and then close the door. So then you don't find it for like 3 days. I'm like, I wonder how long this light's been on. Anyway, we could talk about this for days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the wonders of having kids. Speaking of kind of having kids, it's number 6, know your partners. Joe Exotic made some business deals with some of the wrong people. Some contracts were passed around that started to push Joe out of his own business. So, not that there's necessarily any sort of contracts with kids, but they're your little partners, and you have to make them smart in business decisions too. Hey, turn the lights off. Hey, don't touch the thermostat. Things of that nature. But yeah, know your partners. If you're going to be in business and you got a backer, a financial backer, an angel investor, things of that nature, you should probably vet them a little bit. Make sure they're not the type that's going to come in and backdoor you. And what was that Facebook movie, The Network, where the original investor, he came in, he trusted everybody. It was also his company. Like, here, we need your signature on some things. Next time he came to visit, you own 0.01 of the company.
I've heard of this happening. I know people that this has happened to. I've heard of this happening a few times. The Facebook story is one of those. Look up. There's something about the Oreos and Hydrox story. The people, it's on YouTube, I believe. Hydrox was the original cookie that looked like an Oreo, and I think they still make them. But ultimately, the guys who were in business together making Hydrox, one of them like stole the stuff and started doing Oreo on his own, and suddenly owned the business. It was a pretty crazy story.
Oh,
and that became Nabisco.
Well, I know like Reese's peanut butter cups, in my opinion, the best candy ever invented. The gentleman that started the Reese's company actually was an employee of the Hershey's company up here in Hershey's, Pennsylvania. Yeah, there we go. Look, Misty's got a couple packs on her right now.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Once I can taste them,
I was going to say, it stinks you can't taste those, but man. But yeah, he went there. He learned really how to make chocolate, or how Hershey's was making chocolate, and decided he was going to start doing it on his own, and tried all kinds of different things, all kinds of different fillers. Finally came upon the peanut butter, and it took off. Long story short, Hershey's ended up buying the company back from Reese's years later, so his family, was profitable off of it. But
So there's another story about how Reese's peanut butter cups came along. It was from Family Guy.
Okay.
Look up on YouTube sometime the Reese's Family Guy.
So which one do we think is more historically correct?
Family Guys, you got to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Family Guy version is it's just a 30-second or 15-second cutaway
vignette.
If Peter says something, that's
between Family Guy and The Simpsons, we basically don't need Wikipedia. But we do need Wikipedia, so please support them if you can. But in all honesty, it's The Simpsons have really, told us a lot about what's going to happen to us. So
everything. They're always accurate. I mean, there's stories of like hundreds of things that they've predicted happening.
Yeah, Nostradamus has nothing on The Simpsons.
No.
So
no,
you know what I think The Simpsons, right? You get a bunch of really fun, smart, let's think outside the box type writers in a room. And they're just like, what's the most wild, crazy thing we can think of? And years ago, they're like, Donald Trump is president. They're like, great, let's do it.
Put that in.
Go with that.
Not a chance this is happening. Guess what? It happens, sons of bitches.
Yeah.
So,
but not only that, I think in The Simpsons, there was a point where like Donald Trump was going down an elevator in an escalator in a shopping mall.
They almost
and then,
scene. Yeah, like it's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird.
The whole thing.
Yeah. So. And last on this list, number 7, accept responsibility for your failures. So if we've watched this the show, the Tiger King, we all knew that Carol effing Baskins, she was the bad guy.
She was the villain.
The villain. Thank you. She was the villain of the whole thing. She was just that thorn in Joe's paw, and you just couldn't get rid of her. Constantly trying to shut him down. She's the activist on the right side of things. She's
an activist. She might be a murderer, which really played into this like true crime thing, right? Oh, there's a whole lot there.
I think that there are a lot of spin-offs from this show, a lot of spin-off possibilities where like it turns out that like Carol Baskin is actually like this really amazing person and she's doing all, and same with Joe. Same with Joe Exotic. Like perhaps spin-offs where like you get another portion of their life and their story.
The Illuminati is actually them hosting like mindfulness retreats.
Right.
Is probably the storyline that has been missed in all of this.
There's probably so many more things that could be these poor people. It's just like any other show where they take some outrageous story or some outrageous line of events, and now these people are forever known as that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not prepared for it. It's much like transition, right? It's like no one tells you what it's going to be like to be a reality TV star. There's probably a few things that like folks go through. You can probably call up Snooki and be like, what does this change in terms of my day to day? But there's not a crash course in it. So now there are these reality stars or reality stars in like rural places in America, and it's just a whole different existence.
It's like if you've ever been on the news. And I know that this doesn't apply to everybody, but there's been a couple times where I've been on the news. I've been interviewed by the news, and I'm talking for a half an hour, and then they take 4 seconds of what I said and put it on the news. And I'm like, but what about everything else that I said?
No.
You have to wonder, again, with Snooki, Jersey Shore, Tiger King. I almost said Lion King. Tiger King.
Him too.
There are all these things. Like I wonder how much other footage they got of these people being normal, just being normal, and then like one dramatic episode, and then of course you put a camera on somebody, you're like, all right, tell us how you feel. These people are like
in the moment, they're like throwing a camera in this guy's face as his employee's arm is still bleeding. Like we're still there.
If you came into my house with a camera crew while my son is having a meltdown and he's getting mad because a video game doesn't work and I'm raising my voice, I become the bad guy if you get 3 seconds of that. I'm the bad guy. What a terrible father.
You brought up the people from Jersey Shore. I mean, they're following them around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and then every week they have to have 30-minute episodes. So if you had five people, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and then of all this footage we have of all 5 of these individuals, let's take a half hour. Like, are we going to take the half hour where Snooki, I don't know if she was reading books back then, but is sitting there reading a book on the deck in the sun, or
no chance.
are we going to take the couple seconds of her getting sloppy drunk and falling down, leaving a club?
All of that.
Let's get that.
How much do you think someone would pay for? So business idea. How much do you think someone would pay for all the unedited, basically footage from these reality shows? I feel like there's a lost market
is I think there's a lot of boring stuff on there.
Well, yeah,
Probably.
but there's probably some other gold stuff that's like, can't put this in the like storyline. But
I was going to say, if somebody like a Joe Exotic, for instance, got out of jail, came across a bunch of money in order to buy the rights to some of this footage back from Netflix and say, so you guys spun your story. I'm going to show the, God knows how many minutes of this is me being normal. This is me helping out a charity. This is me going to church. This is me, all the normal things that Joe would do on a day to day. And he could really spin an entire different story. Because really, depending on who your editors are, is the story you're going to get. So Netflix had a very specific story they wanted to put out there, and that's what everybody got. I'm sure there's plenty of footage out there that could spin a slightly different tale.
Right.
But here at the end of the article, it talks about how, number 7 was accept the responsibilities for your failures. At the end of the show, even against his lawyer's recommendations, Joe wanted to take the stand as a witness and try to blame everybody else for everything that had gone wrong one last time. There's a reason guys like Jocko Williams and Leif Babin tell everybody extreme ownership is the best way forward, either in your job or business. No matter what happens, realize that if it is your business, if this is your venture, you are ultimately responsible. And the best way to move forward is to constantly accept responsibility for what happens and your actions. So,
that's right.
And I think the overall biggest lesson from Tiger King was don't try to hire a hitman that's going to sell you out.
Yeah.
It's probably not ever advisable to hire a hitman.
But it's also, just don't hire a hitman. Like, the more, I don't know, I listen to a murder podcast because naturally I do, and it's all about the dismount, right? So, like, let's not include people we don't need to include in our murder plots, and let's not hire hitmen. Let's just try to keep it, between like as least amount of people as we can. And if you haven't learned anything, then shame on you, because there's 47,000 true crime documentaries out there, and there's 16,000 gajillion podcasts, and therefore leverage your resources as you go to plan your things that you shouldn't be planning. So there you
go. There you go.
Perhaps we should have a spinoff, like Beyond the Wire becomes Beyond the Crime, and then we pretend like we're experts. Like, here are my credentials. Let's talk about something. You just never know. You never know.
Anytime I find my wife listening to or viewing a true crime type series or documentary or whatever it is, I just go, still planning, are you?
Right. You just need to have as many, take as many things. They always say leverage your resources. So
you're finding out where everybody else went wrong. I won't make these same mistakes. It's learning from others' mistakes.
Learning from others' mistakes. And we have been told that all our lives.
Yeah.
How does that fit into extreme ownership, though? So after you do the crime, do you still take extreme ownership, or you take extreme ownership of you not telling anybody? Like you deny.
Well, depend. If you did the crime, I guess. If you get caught, you get caught. You might as well.
If you do the crime, you got to do the time. Click it or tick it.
Right? Click it or tick.
So
Very
you do
good.
take. So when the cops
Misty
come knocking,
has been
like
on the highway.
the cops come knocking, that's when you're like, you're right, I did it.
Yeah.
Jocko said I should take extreme ownership.
Jocko recommends extreme
Make
ownership.
sure I mention him at least 3 dozen times in whatever thing I'm confessing to, because maybe they'll use it on the podcast and then I can become famous. I could be like the felon model guy. What's Hot Felon? Like,
oh yeah.
See, he ended up on like a yacht somewhere after being just taking a good mugshot. So I feel like there are opportunities abound, even when you think there's not. Robert Downey Jr., come on.
And along those lines, Misty, I know you said before we went live that you're probably not going to play the lottery based on luck right now, but I would say that I'd say that you should play your odds on luck, that you've been vaccinated and have had COVID twice now. Yeah. Perhaps you're lucky. Like perhaps maybe it's actually that you're like statistically unlikely, and thusly you should play the lottery. And if you do, based on my recommendation, and you win, I'm going to have to take a 25% royalty or something like that. Speaking of yachts.
Right. Yeah. We're all trying to get ourselves a yacht and a tiger.
Right.
if you get to that sort of money where you can afford a yacht, I guess it really doesn't matter. But overall, boats are a pretty bad investment. So
they are typically.
So let's
Tim with the financial advice. Thank you.
Right.
Licensed boat captain, used to work for a company called Cito down in Jersey. I love being on the water. I love to fish. I love boats, all those good things. But just knowing what boats cost.
But you subscribe to the ideal that the best days in a boat owner's life is the day they get it and the day they sell it.
I've always heard that. Yep.
Yeah.
We need to have Tim Kester on here sometime again to talk about the financial. Tim was one of our. He was an Army sniper, and he's a financial advisor now. And Tim talks about what to do with your money and where to put it, where not to put it. But we should ask him about. Tim is a good investment of boat and see what he says.
Yeah, we should just bring him on and just pepper him with terrible investment ideas.
That's my whole idea. Can we ask him about tigers?
just
be
a
like,
whole
Tim,
episode of peppering him with like the worst ideas ever.
We're like, but get this, Tim. I'm going to start a tiger park. I'm not just buying a tiger for my pets.
Like, just come in.
People are going to
give you a couple steaks. You get to hand feed a tiger.
Right.
Yeah, and then whatever steak you don't give the tiger, then we can do like the cooking experience. There's cooking classes.
Sell the steak for $50.
Yeah.
And then here we are. I feel like Tim doesn't realize that we need this now. Yeah. So Tim, I can't wait to hear this podcast.
We should have him back on. We'll have him back on.
We'll just have the worst possible waiver ever. Like, you promise not to be mad at us if bad things happen. Sign here.
But you have to pull a couple of ideas that just sound really dumb. Like, okay, Tim, Snuggies. Is is it a good idea if I invest in a blanket with arms? Because everyone would have been like, dumb. And then those people probably have a yacht.
I was going to say, if you got in at the right spot and then got out, you made a lot of them.
Get this, an online bookstore.
Yeah.
Buy books online. Or any other products online. 20 years ago, I would have been like, no.
When books don't take off, we're going to, start selling everything.
Right. Everything.
And taking people to space.
Digital money, computerized money.
Right.
I know.
When I first heard about it, I'm like,
can't trace it.
Dumbest thing in the world. This is stupid.
There were conversations about mobile phones. Before mobile phones, people were like, why would I want somebody to be able to get a hold of me everywhere I go? And now people can't drive down the street without.
Oh my God, I have to turn around. I forgot my phone.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're looking at their phones while making dangerous decisions in cars while they're hurtling down the highway at 85 miles an hour.
Yes.
Gosh, man, do you remember ringback tones?
It was always country music. Always country music.
Oh, the glory. Or like having to record your voicemail, like when the song came on the radio, you're like, oh, this one is the one I want. You're like holding up your phone to record.
Yeah.
That's right. That's it.
Nostalgia.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's we've had a lot of fun to start the episode. Let's actually get into our guest.
That's what we're here for.
About, Misty Fox. So Misty, you work with the George W. Bush Presidential Center?
No, so here we go. So let's go through everything real quick. I work at the Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse University. I am a George W. Bush Institute Veteran Leadership Program scholar or graduate. So that's something that I got to do.
That's the word I was looking for.
So here we are. So I'm a scholar, so I'm a graduate of that program. So if we can start with a little overview of the Institute and what the Institute does, and then parlay it over into a few things. So the Institute actually started in 2007. So Dr. Haney, who's kind of our executive director, founder, Air Force veteran, was just a professor at Whitman School. And as a summer project, he's like, I'm going to take 17 service-disabled veterans and put them through an entrepreneurship program, which is actually going on at Syracuse right now, called the Entrepreneurship Boot Camp for Veterans. And that took off. So in 2011, it formally came together. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary, and now we have 4 pillars. So we have entrepreneurship, where I have 11 programs that are designed to meet people where they're at, geography-wise or on their journey of entrepreneurship. We have Onward Opportunity, where folks can get one of 40 different professional certifications, like, your PMP and your CISSP or your Certified Ethical Hacker, which is my favorite one. I don't even know what it does. You can get all of that for free through IVMF if you're a military spouse or a veteran. And then we, of course, have our research folks. We have some of the most amazing brains in the space that are just working on cutting edge topics. And then our community coordinated care with America Serves, making sure that there's no wrong door. So if veterans come into one of these centers across the nation and say, I need help with the VA claim and or job and or anything else, these folks can get them to the right place in the least amount of time. So I head up entrepreneurship. It's awesome. I love it. As a part of that, I always lecture to folks, and we've kind of made jokes about it, that like you should be leveraging your network and you should always be learning. You should always be getting around people that are better than you at what you do. If you're in a room and you're the smartest person, you're in the wrong room, which I've never, had to worry about being accused of, so it's fine.
You're probably the smartest person in this room, Misty. Go ahead. Sorry.
So then I did the George W. Bush. They have the Veteran Leadership Program, which is an amazing program that over 5 months you get to go to Dallas, which is great unless you go there and get COVID. That also happened. But, you go to Dallas, you go to Washington, D.C., you get to see Amazon and some other great companies and learn more about what folks are doing for veterans and what, leaders in the space are doing. And you get to expose to amazing leaders. President Bush was there. So I got to pitch my grand idea to him. Secretary McDonald, Secretary Spellings, General Pace. So just some amazing speakers come out to spend some great time with you. So I think, the biggest thing is like, go out there and do it. I think that's one thing. I had to be talked into it. Huge imposter syndrome in this entire thing. And I think that I would have missed out on a huge, amazing opportunity because I didn't have if it's confidence or just like someone else should probably be there, not me sort of thing. So, right. But it's awesome. 10 on 10 would recommend.
Let's back up for a second. So the hot topic that we always discuss every time it comes up is skill bridge. IVMF, there's a skill bridge opportunity there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. With our honored opportunity program. So I think that it's a huge opportunity. Look, let's walk through that program a little bit. If you are a veteran of any era, if you are close to separation, if you're a military spouse, if you're a guard, if you're a reservist, this program is made for you. You can go to locations across the country and or do it online. And it teaches you about, job hunting. It lets you go through this certification process. We have VR kits where you can even do interviews, like you're sitting in an interview. So there's so many things that you can learn. It is skill bridge. And then on the back end, you get connected to amazing employers who are looking for folks just like you. But it's also great to get upskilled and, in a skill that you might need in your current role too. So, and here's the best part about it. It's free. And I don't mean like we use your GI Bill free,
right?
Or it's like, it is free. Well, no cost. You got to put in some time. So that's not free.
No cost to the
It's
candidate.
No cost.
Right.
Yeah, no cost to the candidate. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's an amazing program. Yep, link to Skill Bridge. I just think it's something that, folks, it is slept on, but it's something that we thought at the beginning when we opened it, okay, if we get 1,000 people a year, we'll be really good. Mm-hmm. And at this point, they're enrolling about 1,000 a month into that program. So tell your friends, your family, your neighbor, people you don't know. It's a great program. There's no reason to not leverage it.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing. It's not we always say like finite resources. I think veterans sometimes have this guilt that like, well, I shouldn't take advantage of that because Tim might need it more than Matt, or, Joe might need it more than Bob. And like,
I've done that.
Knock it off. Right. Knock it off. Like,
yeah,
these resources have been curated to specifically address certain needs in this community. And I think the more folks that really lean in and leverage these resources, the more that you can then help as a navigator for the community around you to help get folks into the right resources. How many times do we hear people just say, I didn't realize it was there. Mm-hmm. I don't know where to find these resources. So the more people that really lean in and get to learn them, the more you can act as navigators for your friends and family and, brothers in arms as they move forward in their transition or anything else in life.
Well, yeah, Matt, it was an article we brought up last week where the final step was, once you achieve certain levels of things, in your transition, you kind of become that guiding light for others. Like, hey, listen, this is, I came from that same place. I was looking to transition just like you are now. This is what I did. I went through this program.
Yeah.
You might not have heard of it. I'm telling you about it. Do some research on it. Reach out. Here's how you go about it.
Send the elevator back down.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I was one of those. I mean, I always complain. I still complain. It's not real complaints. These are fun complaints. But I complain that like when I left the military, there were no such programs. Like there wasn't LinkedIn. there were a couple of job fairs that you could go to, but there were no such programs. So I came out as a combat engineer. Hey, I blow things up and shoot guns. What do I do next? Crickets. Like I had to figure it out. And that's what's driven me for success in my own career. Now, have I established any of these like really cool programs like this? No. Talk about imposter syndrome, Misty. I talk about that all the time because sometimes I go through day to day, and then I'm like, I haven't done anything today. And then I look back and I'm like, actually, I hired, 100 people this month, or I got 50 connections, or so that kind of stuff is happening little by little. Back to the point about the resources that are finite, and Tim might need it more than me. If I go find it and I select it, and I get selected, Tim can go find another resource too. There are a lot of resources. There are a lot of different things. I did the same thing with my VA benefits. It took me a number of years to go to the VA and just get my checkout because I kept hearing about the backlog of seriously injured TBI, PTSD veterans who were coming out and they were waiting for months and years to get seen. And I'm like, listen, I'm not necessarily going in there for a TBI, but I have physical stuff that I can live with, and I'm okay.
Right.
I'll wait until the backlog is over.
And I think the other important part of it too is just you said send the elevator back down, but just then being the person that talks about it, that says, this is what's going on. This is what's working. This is what is not working. Mm-hmm. When it comes to different programs, I mean, look, as a nonprofit, we, have to figure out where our dollars go first. And if I have Matt and Tim out there acting as like my media or my social media or the voice for my things, and that means that I can put my focus where it belongs and put the military connected individual at the middle of the focus, and we'll end up at the right place.
Yep.
But I do think that, folks need to lean in, like take the resources that are meant for you, and then make sure that, you're telling your surrounding folks about it. And maybe not even just once, like we say, put it on LinkedIn, but every now and then throw it back and put it on LinkedIn again, whatever it is, whatever it works, because you never know who's watching that day.
Well, don't ever assume that everybody saw it the first time. Assume that's the general rule of social media and LinkedIn is assume that 5% of your connections actually saw it the first time. So do it again 2 weeks later, and that 5% that already saw it, they're not going to come back in there and be like, hey, Matt, I already saw that. Can you take it down?
Yeah.
You're just going to catch another 5% of people. So absolutely always share those things. And that's another piece of this. There are 40,000 veteran-based or veteran service nonprofits in the United States. I think that's the number.
So much noise.
And there are, outside of nonprofits, there are thousands of other for-profit entities that are out there servicing veterans as well. And it gets noisy. Yeah, Misty, to your point, it's noisy. And there are a handful of organizations. And I say this not to discount any one or the other. There are a handful that are known, that have a reputation for having some sort of workout, some sort of positive benefit.
Yeah.
And those ones that work, the ones that have the positive benefit, the ones that are tried and true, need to be talked about more. They need more organic promotion. They shouldn't. In other words, I don't think the IVMF should be out there like, hey, let's spend a ton of money. Nor should any nonprofit, for that matter, spend dollars and dollars and dollars on promotion. It's better if people are just talking about it.
It's hard because, to your point, we've served 162-ish thousand plus military connected individuals through our programs at the Institute. And, to your point, our best first use or first best use, if you say it, is to run programs and run trainings and to do research. We're really good at it.
Right. Now,
taking our eye off the prize and then saying we're also going to run like a marketing campaign or something like that. Yeah, there's some of those things that are necessary. But to your point, like there's 40,000 other people I'm fighting with for airspace. And so having that word of mouth and having folks that can really, talk about the programs is best. And I will say this, that's where most of our folks come from. So most of our program attendees are, friends or just within the ecosystem of other folks that have then been through the program. And it's hysterical because every now and then on Reddit, I'll see a thread that's like, I took on opportunity and I got my PMP. Has anyone else heard about this? And then you see kind of people, piling onto it, but that's how it should be.
Right.
That's how it should be. Tell the community about things that work.
No, what's that? I mean, that's the, and again, in my world, it's SkillBridge. SkillBridge is like the new shiny toy that we're, as an employer, as a recruiter, I'm trying to use and really utilize that. And I'm hearing about people that have gone through TAP programs twice, or they're connected to this network and they've never heard about SkillBridge. I'm like, everybody should be hearing about SkillBridge. Everybody should be hearing about onward opportunity. Everybody should, you know, some of this stuff really should be built in to, in my opinion, the TAP programs in the military. It should be mandated. And we've been saying this I was at a meeting yesterday. A lot of the conversation was, hey, look at this new shiny tool and look at this new shiny tool. And again, I've been doing this type of work for so long. And I had this conversation with one of my resources, one of my trusted resources counterparts yesterday. I've been doing this type of work for so long. I've seen so many of these programs, these new shiny toys come along, that as soon as the person who developed them moves into another position in the government and in the military and the DoD, that's every year, the whole thing goes away. And then when you go to look it up, like, hey, 4 years ago, I used this program. I'm going to look up the website. It's a dead link. Nothing's there anymore. Nothing ever happened. And it was just, again, a shiny toy that never happened. So it's good that, I mean, you talk about 220,000 some odd people that you've served in this program. That is an entire year, essentially, of people leaving the military. And that's the number, you know? So that's great. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. Misty, you're talking kind of about that organic word of mouth type of advertising, you know, to get this stuff out there. I think that this is just kind of society as a whole right now. Places like social media, Reddit, a lot of that is the negative of the world out there. If more people used these tools for the positive, you know, hey, I went to this restaurant, the waiter stunk. I had to wait 15 minutes till somebody even came over to the table. I found a hair in my food. It's fine. That was one individual's experience. If they served 500 people that night, 499 of them had a great experience. Those people aren't going on there saying, "Oh my God, my waiter Matt, he came over immediately, was on top of us the whole night, amazing. The food was fantastic." So with programs like this, if an individual goes in, gets accepted into a program similar to this or like this one, has a bad experience, that's going to be the loudest voice out there.
Right.
And that really stinks. We need more of these individuals. If you've been in one of these programs, or if you've been through the SkillBridge program, those are the individuals we need to get out there that need to be standing on top of these mountaintops, screaming as loud as they possibly can. This will help you. It might not be for everyone, but if this is the path I was looking to take, if you were looking to take a similar path, please do everything you can to look into this.
And that's it right there, Tim. You just said it, because like that tailored approach, right? Like, this is who it's for. This is how it's going to help you, and take it if it works for you, or if that's where you're at on your journey, and go forth and conquer. Because I think, often folks will ask me, what's the best way that I can support small business? And especially during COVID, a lot of people were very interested, which we're still in, but whatever. But, during that time, people are like, I want to support small business or support anything, but can't spend a lot of money. And that right there, reviews, good reviews. If something really worked, get it out there and talk about it. So you don't necessarily have to go spend $1 at every small business in the Syracuse area to support small business. But when you have a great, experience with the program or with the business or something like that, post it. Tell people how great it was. Share it. When you go to pick up your favorite, like, Eskimo Joe's cup from Stillwater that you've had for 10 years, like, remember to tell people about those things, because I think, that's the best way to get it out there. It gets it out in front of people that need to use it. It helps that company not have to spend $1 on something that's not its first best use. And it gets people driving to the right place. There's 40,000 VSOs out there, quite frankly. And again, not going for 20,000, we could get rid of 20,000 of them and the world would not change. And I think that's the big issue too.
Yeah. Yeah. And one step further than that, again, it is, I mentioned mandating this and like TAP programs and things like that. It's also, social media works great and the reviews work great and everything like that. But sometimes these things need to be, these ones that are working, the programs that are having an exponential benefit need to be packaged up and given to the service member, for example, before they leave. And they, like, my transition out of the Marine Corps was, here's how you write a resume. And I believe the guy from Navy Federal came in and talked about savings accounts and investments accounts and things like that. And I'm like, well, that's cool. But can again, the program for all branches be mandated to say, here are some programs. If you want a PMP, go look here. There are some things, and it's probably a lengthy list, but I'm sure it's something that can be thrown into a folder and everybody gets a piece of it.
Yeah.
I mean, literally in today's world, you could put together a spreadsheet, different pages for different programs, for different businesses, for different nonprofits that are tailored for, certain lanes, certain aspects. And hey, if you're looking to get into, sales, if you're looking to become an entrepreneur, if you're looking to, the trades, if you're looking to go to schools, here are different programs for these individual lanes,
Programs are not one size fits all. You
Yeah.
really do have to figure out where you're at on your journey and then figure out what program can work best for you. And I think that that's another thing too, is to look at, sometimes a program won't serve you exactly well, but that's not on the program. That can also be where you were. So like if you go through, we run entrepreneurship programs. I have some for ideation, startup, and growth. If you go through Veteran Edge, which is for established veteran-owned businesses, most of them are doing at least $2.5 million a year in revenue. If you try to go through that edge in your ideation stage, it's probably not going to serve you as well, because that's not what it's there for. So I think understanding where you're at on your journey and being very honest with yourself, and then leveraging the appropriate resources as you go forward. And that's another thing, is it's not just like a one size fits all, but it's also not like just go through one thing and be done with it. You're a different person 5 years later. So what worked for you to get the job in the first place isn't going to work as you go to continue your skill set and grow. So like, don't be afraid to reach back out and say, okay, now as a, burgeoning senior executive instead of a junior executive, like, what do I need to do to get smarter and move up? And is there something else for me out there? Is it now time for ACP or another one of these networking things? Or is it now time for, whatever it is, O2O, whatever it is, to then say, how can I continue to move forward? Because it's always about just moving that needle a little bit more.
Yeah, Misty brought it up. What program got you the job isn't going to be the program you want to go back into now that you're looking to take the next step, because you don't need to get the job now. You have it.
Yeah, you got it.
I appreciate what that program did to get me here, but now it's time to move on.
On to the next.
And I'll use Cinderella as like the thing here. The glass slipper, it's not going to fit everybody. It was made for a specific foot. So if you force yourself into that glass slipper, it's great. It's going to look real pretty, but hey, you're going to wear it around and it doesn't fit right. You're going to get some blisters. You're going to have some arch pain. Your heel's not going to, do well. God forbid you break that glass slipper and now you have glass shards in the bottom of your foot.
Yeah.
I saw something the other day. And it was like, hey, if the slipper was made exclusively for her, why did it fall off? That was kind of funny. Like, he was punching holes.
Well, you know what?
It was made to walk and dance and not run.
Pumps,
she was
okay. So that's why.
Yeah,
Bare heels.
I guess
she's not supposed to run in those, and she was up against it. She had to get back by midnight.
The wrong tool for the wrong. Like, if she's sprinting, she should be in sneakers. If she was in sneakers, they wouldn't have fallen off.
Glass Nikes would have been better.
Yeah, would have been a better choice, Matt.
And let's go back to this. If this were taking a lesson from the Tiger King, it would be, what were we talking about before? Like, know your partners or work with the right people.
Know your partners.
So if she were being, or extreme accountability, she should have told Prince Charming that she wasn't really what she was.
Yeah.
She should have taken extreme accountability and said, listen, take me out of this. Evil stepsisters.
You know what? Cinderella needed a transition program to get
right.
She did.
Perhaps we should rewrite some of these stories.
Yeah. I know.
We're talking about buying yachts and getting rich. This is how you do it right here.
We could totally remake Cinderella into a transitioning person, someone coming out of the military. Is Cinderella. They're mopping the floors, they're being yelled at by drill instructors and your sergeants and so on, and you've been beaten down and it's time to move on, and you look at the civilian world as Prince Charming.
Yep.
And
and Cinderella's name is now, to keep up with current times, her name is like Cindy or something. And
right.
And if she's in the Marine Corps, then they call her
Lance Corporal Cindy.
Yeah, they call her Sea Murder as her nickname, things like that. So
I like it. Overall, I think we're onto something here.
We're on a storyline here.
We're going to run transition programs for reality stars and then rewrite these.
Yeah.
There have been transition programs for like major league.
Right. But we're not worried about
major league sports athletes and things like that.
They're fine.
I know. I know.
But we're worried about reality stars.
We should do that. Let's look into it.
You know, and the fairy godmother is all of these programs.
Is Carol Baskin.
Yeah. There you go. Misty, I wanted to ask you quick, you being from Oklahoma, how did you end up in Syracuse? How did you get involved with this whole thing?
I really like small college towns that start with the S and have the main color of orange. I was at Stillwater, Oklahoma State University, where I ran their entrepreneurship programs, and they have a veteran entrepreneurship program. And I ran that for a few years, and then Syracuse came knocking and said, we're setting up a more Center of Excellence for Veteran Entrepreneurship. And I said, that sounds great. And then I moved there, and the first weekend it was -20. And I quickly ran through my entire decision-making theory and said, I'm not entirely sure I found myself in the right place. But 5 years later, we're exactly where we need to be. And it's funny how things work out. But that's how I ended up in Syracuse and took over the reins, like I said, in January of 2016. Since then, have set up some new programs for vets and military-connected individuals. And I think in my portfolio alone, we've seen about almost 80,000 folks go through our training program. So it's exciting to see, I've seen folks go from ideation to well over $10 million companies within 3 years. And it's brilliant. And it gives me hope that I will too one day have a $10 million company with a tiger and a yacht.
Mm-hmm. Sounds reasonable.
Are you stuck to the color orange?
I mean, it seems to do well by me.
Okay.
So maybe what is it, like UT or Tennessee? I don't know. We got options.
Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, Tennessee would be orange. I was going to say State College, Pennsylvania is where Penn State is, but they're blue and white.
No, it's not. It doesn't really do the same thing for me.
Okay.
Syracuse.
I was just trying to bring you down to Pennsylvania. Get you down here.
Just go a little bit down, 81, and then boom. And then you have, because everything, you can do 3 degrees of separation for everything Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And you have Jim Thorpe's Park, and he's an Oklahoman. So, and that's in Pennsylvania, right? So there we go. So basically there's your everything's related to Oklahoma. Yeah. You're welcome.
Well, if no one's ever been to Jim Thorpe, PA, it is a beautiful, beautiful little town.
Little baby town. Yep.
It's a beautiful town. And, you get to learn about somebody that I had no idea who he was until I was in that town. And then I started really to learn about him. So very interesting individual. Misty, thank you very much for coming on today. Appreciate you. I think we spent a little too much time on the news, but we're at that hour mark. So we got to cut this short. You've been a fantastic guest. We'll definitely have to have you back on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you know what? We'll wait till you're COVID positive for the 3rd time.
Yep. And then and listen,
the charm. I don't know what the charm is.
We'll get Tim Kester on here, and we'll start talking about horrible financial,
reverse Shark Tank.
Yes.
I really do think. I hope Tim is watching or listening. If he's not, I'm gonna point this out to him because we're talking about him now. But I do think that what we should do is we should have a show where we're doing scenarios. Okay, Tim, listen.
I like it.
I've got $25,000. I'd like to buy new mud tires for my car, a boat, or invest into some stock, some random stock, and see what he says.
Yeah.
I like Misty's reverse Shark Tank. I have this $1 billion idea. How can I completely just run this thing into the ground?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I like it.
See what he says.
Yeah.
See what he says.
Yeah. But thank you very much for coming on. Yeah, we'll definitely have to have you back on in the future, Misty. As always, you can find us on all the major social media platforms. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms. And Matt, you wanted to kind of throw this out there for somebody to comment today. You wanted to give away a gift card. I say let's do that for a reviewer.
Do it.
Over the next week, we will pick a reviewer. You can review us on any of the major podcast platforms or social media platforms. We will pick one of the reviewers, and we will get in touch with you and send you an Amazon gift card.
And I think from here on out, while we're live streaming, if you're on Facebook or YouTube and you want to chime in, leave a comment, write a question, then you'll be put in the running for another one of those gift cards. So we'll just keep running that down the street.
There you go. I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah. And as Misty said, go out there, tell your friends, tell your family, tell somebody you don't know. Start a conversation with strangers. They're fun.
6 feet away from them, but start the conversation.
With a mask on behind a plastic piece of glass.
Yep.
You know what? Sign language was what we all should have been learning back in school. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
this whole thing could have been avoided with sign language.
Right.
Perfect.
Right.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Misty.
Yes. So until next time, you can catch us right back here on the Beyond the Wire podcast.